Here we go again. Hey everybody, Mary here for Mary's Heirloom Seeds. You're gonna lose me for a second there. There we go. Hi everybody. Mary here for Mary's Heirloom Seeds, and I am live. I'm super excited. I go live here every Thursday at 5 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. I quit going live on Facebook because it just got to be a little too weird, crazy, whatever. So I hope you enjoy my live chat tonight. So before I get started, for those of you just joining me, welcome. For those of you that join me regularly, welcome back. I am Mary. There really is a Mary behind Mary's Heirloom Seeds. And if you haven't already, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. All right. That was my reminder. Let me just double check something here so that I don't have a bunch of... Like I said, if you haven't already, hey, Esther's daughter, thanks for joining me. So tonight's topic is food storage prepping in the garden, specifically perennials. Now, I have quite a few food storage prepping in the garden videos, and I'm just now adding to my series. And this is going to be an ongoing series. It's not going to end. Hey, Caitlin, because I should say, am constantly expanding my garden. I'm constantly expanding my garden knowledge, and I'm also constantly expanding what is available to me here in my garden. So I wanted to talk about perennials because for me, being prepared for what life might throw at me is important. I've always felt that way, and last month was National Preparedness Month. And I shared with you a couple of videos that would help you be better prepared in your garden. But then this series, the Food Storage Prepping in the Garden series, is more for like long-term food storage or to help you grow and store, which is kind of important. We had this crazy... I'm sorry, I'm a little discombobulated. I just had to rush over to my YouTube live. I was watching my friend Jen live on Facebook. She was the one I posted on my Facebook page who her farm is a total loss in North Carolina. The community there is devastated. They've lost everything, really. The road, her driveway was washed out and she couldn't even get out of her driveway. The bridge that her community uses to get to food and like regular stores and things like that washed away. So I got caught up in watching her video, so bear with me here. Being prepared is super important. So I've got videos on food storage prepping in the garden for corn, for beans, moringa, sunflowers, different ways to use them is also mentioned in the video, and it's in the description section of this video. So before I get to the meat and potatoes of my video, I wanted to share with you a couple of tidbits. First of all, we have our October seed giveaway. It is posted down in the description section below. I believe it ends on the 9th of October, so if you're watching the replay, you might only have a couple days to enter. We have a seed sale for the entire month of October, October 24, and that is Greens 24. We'll take 15% off all of our greens collection. And then you have Kits 15. By the way, if for some reason you're watching this and you can't see what's going on, just give me a holler and let me know. Kits 15 will take 15% off of all of our kits, our starter kits at Mary's Heirloom Seeds. Esther's daughter says it's devastating. Our beaches are destroyed. It's so sad. Absolutely. I lived in South Florida for almost 9 years. My husband he was living on the beach when Katrina hit, and he was fortunate enough to be able to move off the beach, and he stayed at a friend's house. But it's very devastating, and honestly, I'm kind of torn going about my regular life and going about my regular business when there are so many people suffering there. But all I can do on my end, I can donate, I can help. I'm not going to get on a plane and fly to North Carolina and help those people because those resources are already stretched to the limit. But I have donated, and I will continue to donate to the relief efforts, specifically to my friend Jen in her community, because I know that those funds are going directly to people who need it. They're buying food for their neighbors who can't, livestock, food, things like that, where I know that it's going to the right place. So anyway, so just so we are, hang on just a second here. There we go. So we're going to talk about perennials tonight. Perennials are things that will come back from year to year, whereas biennials are about 2 years, and then annuals are like a tomato, and tomatoes are only, hey Doc. Hang on. There we go. All right. So asparagus is what we're going to start with. Asparagus is 3 years to mature. And then what you're going to do, yep, Esther's daughter, we got some trolls and I've already removed them. Asparagus is 3 years to mature from seed, which is crazy. But that asparagus plant can continue to produce for 10 to 30 years or even more. So while growing asparagus from seed is kind of a labor intensive, because like I said, if you're planting those seeds, it's going to be 3 years until they're ready. But the great news is you can continue to harvest them every year. Those asparagus pop up from the ground, and then you've got so many beautiful and delicious asparagus. So the reason I'm talking about perennials is because you can plant them once and they'll continue to be able to harvest them for a while. Now, artichokes are another one. Artichokes can take a full year to mature, sometimes even 2, and those will continue to produce for about 5 years. Now, you may not think that artichokes are a big homestead crop, but it's something that some people like, so I'm including it here. Egyptian walking onions. My Egyptian walking onions, these ones here, are probably the most protected in the entire state of Texas. I'm going to show you real quick here. So if you missed my live chat last week, I talked about how I'm protecting my garden, this new garden space anyway, from the hogs. So that's why it has its own protective fence here, which is so crazy. It was just something I threw together, and it was fairly difficult, but I was able to get it done. And these are my Egyptian walking onions. Now here's the cool thing about Egyptian walking onions. They will produce indefinitely. So Egyptian walking onions are propagated by bulbs, by mini bulbules that are produced at the top of the green portion of the onion. So you've got an onion that's growing, and then the little bulbules form on the top. You can pull those bulbules and you can plant them somewhere else, or you can let them walk. And what that does is they grow and they grow and they grow, and then they get too heavy and they flop over from the green portion of the onion. Now from there, you probably have about 3 to 5 mini bulbs, and those, once they hit that soil, they can start to root and grow right there, and that's how they walk. The cool thing about Egyptian walking onions is they will propagate themselves and they will grow indefinitely. So there isn't a start and stop date. It's not like, oh, 10 years, we're done. And then what you can do is every couple of years or every fall, you can pull apart those clusters, those bunches, and you can transplant them as well, or you could eat them. What I normally do is I will pull the clusters apart. I'll plant one and I'll eat the rest. You can dehydrate them, you can freeze them, you can chop them up just like you would a regular green onion, and they are fantastic. Now the next one is wild leeks, also called ramps. Now here's the tricky part about these. Wild leeks can take up to 2 years to germinate from seed. Wild, right? And they don't mature and flower until 7 years. But once they're established, they will continue to grow. What happens with wild leeks, also called ramps, is they form rhizomes underneath the soil, and they propagate, and they just continue to grow and grow and grow. And so they pop up here and there and there. And so what you can do is you can do the same thing. You can divide them. So you can pull up the rhizome, you can divide them, and you can plant them in different areas. By the way, if you're watching this live, thank you for joining me. For those of you that are just joining me for the first time, welcome. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And definitely share the video if you can. So they take forever to mature, but once they do, it's fantastic. Esther's Daughter, I have one that's not a big name brand and it works great for me. I'll share the information down in the description section. I know my friend has one too. She's got the big, massive one. So I'll share, I don't know what the name brand is, but I'll find it. Excalibur is what my friend has, and I know she likes it. Malabar spinach. Malabar spinach is actually a vining spinach, and it is a perennial in warmer climates. Hey Inga, thanks for joining me. So if you live in a warmer climate and it doesn't get freezing, like Florida, of course, it's a very common one in Florida. Malabar spinach is a really good one. From seed to harvest, it is only 70 days, excuse me. So instead of the 7 years like I was talking about with ramps, you've got 70 days with Malabar spinach. So that's one that you might want to try as well. Now, if you're in a colder area, you can grow it as an annual and you can save the seeds and plant them again next year. But it's a vining spinach. They can vine 10 to 20 feet or more. So you're definitely going to want to give it a trellis. You're going to want to give it some space. So if I wanted to make the best opportunity for this space here, I could actually plant Malabar spinach along one side of this, even though I have Egyptian walking onions here. And as long as I'm not disturbing the roots of the Egyptian walking onions, I can plant something else in this space and use the trellis that's already here that's keeping the hogs out. I can use this to keep the Malabar spinach growing in a longer, wider space. So that's always a plus. Sweet potatoes. So I will share a video not too long from now about how to propagate your own sweet potato slips. Sweet potatoes are grown from slips. You can actually plant the entire sweet potato and let it grow that way once it's sprouted, or you can let your sweet potato sprout. You can clip those slips off. It's just literally the sprout that comes up. And what I do is I cut the slip off, and then I put it in a glass of water, and it roots right there, and then you can plant it right out in your garden. The cool thing about a sweet potato is you can eat the leaves as it's growing, and the sweet potato will continue to grow and grow and grow, and you just use those tubers that you collect to plant your next crop. It's a fantastic one as well. Now, rhubarb is another great one. It can take an entire year to grow something that is usable, and then it can actually take, it can produce, so here's the thing about rhubarb. They say it can produce for 5 to 15 years, but you can also divide it, which is kind of cool, right? So what you do is you're growing your rhubarb, right? And you have it established. So say your rhubarb is 4 years old, right? And obviously you've got more than 4 years because it's 5 to 15 years. So at 4 years, say you want to divide it. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull the entire plant up, and you can chop it in pieces. You want to make sure that you have a couple of nodes that are good, healthy nodes that you're going to chop up, and then you transplant those. So you're now dividing your rhubarb to multiple plants that will continue to grow and grow and grow. So that's the kind of cool thing about rhubarb is you can divide it, just like the ramps and just like the Egyptian walking onions. Now, you don't have to chop up the Egyptian walking onions or the ramps. You just pull up the roots and transplant them somewhere else. So that's kind of fun. Tree collards are another fun one. Tree collards don't actually, they don't actually flower. So that's why I don't sell the seeds. Generally, people buy them as starts or cuttings. So if you grow a tree collard, you can cut pieces off of it and root them, and now you've got another plant. So you won't find seeds for those at Mary's Heirloom Seeds because they don't really flower, but you can grow them from cuttings. Now, I wanted to share something that I really like to grow that's not necessarily a perennial, but it's a really good one. Actually, a couple of really good ones. So kale, collards, and Swiss chard can actually grow for more than a year. So technically they would be at what's called a tender perennial. or sorry, a tender biennial, so they can produce for 2 years. But I've actually seen collards produce for 3 years. I've seen kale produce for 3 years. And my Swiss chard at 3 years is generally producing flowers or seeds. So it's not necessarily going to be considered a perennial, but it's a really good one. There's another one called New Zealand Spinach, which is actually not a spinach at all. You've got New Zealand spinach is kind of a funky texture. I shared one with my friend and she was like, I don't really like that one because it's not your typical spinach. But it doesn't really have that irony flavor that a regular spinach has. The texture, the feel of it is kind of almost like a succulent, which is kind of fun. And I love New Zealand spinach. It's crunchy. It's really full of water. I don't know if you like that kind of thing, but I actually love that kind of thing. So if that's something you like, I highly recommend New Zealand spinach. You can actually, the seeds are super spiky and they produce seeds fairly easily when they're ready to go to seed. So that's a good one. Hey, Christian, I have never eaten stinging nettle. Well, okay, I don't eat stinging nettle, but I do make it a tea out of stinging nettle. So I have consumed tea from stinging nettle, but I've never actually eaten it. Stinging nettle gets its name because it stings your skin when you eat it. But when it's dry, I don't find that it is as stingy as when it's fresh. And when I make a tea out of it, it's not stingy at all. And it's really, really good for seasonal allergies. So for those of you like me, I moved to Texas and all of a sudden I found that I had allergies. So I use stinging nettle and spearmint tea during the summertime, actually kind of like spring through fall. And it does wonders for me. So plus it's tasty. Stinging nettle and spearmint's really good as a tea. So let's see. Then we have herbs. So tonight's topic is food storage prepping in the garden, specifically perennials. So you'll find different videos I have about food storage crops like pumpkin and corn and sunflower, moringa, and I talked about the different reasons why I share those as a food storage crop. Christian says, never had so much mucus when I didn't live in Texas more recently. I mean, it's really weird because my husband has always had bad allergies and he's from Texas, but we moved back to Texas and he didn't have as much trouble. And now I have trouble, so whatever. And I never had allergy issues before. So let's talk about some herbs that are also perennials that you can grow in your garden. And again, the reason I'm talking about perennials as a food storage option is because you can plant them once and they continue to grow for years. Rosemary. I had a friend in Florida. She had a rosemary tree. It was over 5 feet tall and it was beautiful. And I have no idea how long it was there, but I'm pretty sure she had lived in that house for like 15 years and the tree may have been there before she bought the house. So rosemary tops my list. And I know in some places it dies. When we had a major freeze here in 2020 in Texas, a lot of people lost their rosemary. But a lot of these herbs that I'm going to mention have some medicinal benefits to them. So definitely plant some rosemary. Sage is another one. My sage is 3 years growing strong. My thyme is 3 years growing strong. Oregano also. Oregano has completely taken over one of my raised beds, so I really had to hack it back this year. Everybody talks about how invasive catnip, lemon balm, the mint plants, which is peppermint and spearmint. Lemon balm is included in there, catnip. They're like never planted in the ground because it's so invasive and it'll just take over your garden. Nobody talks about how oregano will literally take over an entire garden bed. This thing was 4 feet wide and 4 by 4 foot wide. I mean, it was a massive oregano bush. I'm not complaining. I cut it way back and I gave some to the chickens and I dried a bunch of my oregano for pizza sauce, which is really good. Thyme is another one that's a really good perennial herb. Oregano has some antibacterial properties, yep, and so does basil, has some antibacterial properties. Most basil is not a perennial though, it's considered an annual. Tree basil is considered a perennial, so in case you're looking for a hardier, longer growing variety, tree basil is an option for you. I love lemon balm. I don't care that it can take over. My cat loves lemon balm. I make lemon balm tea. My spearmint is planted in a raised bed, and I just hack it back every now and then, dry everything off, and that's why I get the stinging nettle and spearmint tea, because I have access to it on a regular basis. And it's really easy to dry, so definitely check some of these out. The catnip is not my favorite as far as a homestead herb, mostly because it did take over. It did attract some pests that I didn't really want in my garden. I had whitefly this year on my catnip. Not the end of the world. Just spray it off really hard and you're good. My cats love catnip. And I make catnip tea. Again, it has some medicinal value to it, so I definitely am still growing it, just not as much. I planted way too much catnip, is what I'm saying, and now I have too much of it. So it's not the end of the world, it's just I have a lot of it, and I don't consume catnip tea as much as I do, say, stinging nettle tea. So just something to consider. What are the benefits of perennials? Less work. So if you are only planting something one time and it will continue to come back for 5 years or 10 years, obviously it's going to be less work if compared to planting a tomato plant every year and having to deal with the tomatoes, for example, every year. I'm not giving up my tomatoes. I love tomatoes. I'm still going to plant tons of annuals, but one of the benefits to perennials is planting it once and continuing to harvest every year for several years. Sorry, I got a bumblebee. Okay, flying around me. Erosion control. If you have a good source of perennials, or you've got an area where you have some erosion, plant some perennials. They will hold on to that soil so that it will erode less. Rosemary is a fantastic one for that. Lavender, again, is also a perennial, and it's great for erosion control. So if you've got an area that maybe you're losing some ground there, definitely consider adding some perennials there. And the other one is sustainability, because you're not having to plant it every year. It means you don't have to buy seeds every year. You don't have to save seeds and plant those seeds every year. You are going to want to make sure that you keep it fertilized, or, you know, well, a good balanced soil, but otherwise you won't necessarily have to plant them every year. Sorry, I'm looking around because I'm always nervous about a critter coming out. We did talk about the wild hogs, and they are everywhere here, so I am always concerned about it. Alrighty, everybody, so just to follow up on what I discussed in the very beginning of the video is the updates for October 2024. We have a seed sale that I sent an email out on. We've got a seed giveaway that's linked in the description section of this video. I have a couple of food storage prepping in the garden videos that I've linked down below as well. And then also we've got 2 discount codes. We've got Greens 24, which will take 15% off all of our heirloom greens collection. And you've got Kits 15, that's KITS as in Sam, the number 15, and that will take 15% off all of our seed starter kits. And I also have free seeds. The free seeds this month are milkweed. So awesome. It's on at marysheirloomseeds.com, and then check out Mary's blog. There's some information about what milkweed seeds we're giving away and why. Milkweed is also a perennial, and it requires cold stratification for optimal germination. So the reason I'm sending it out to you now in the month of October is because if you want to cold stratify it now before you plant it outside, it will give you a head start for next year, or you can winter sow the seeds, and then they will be ready to germinate next year. Alrighty, everybody. If you have any questions, you can send an email to mary@marysheirloomseeds.com, and I will answer. As always, check out the description section of this video. You'll also find my comprehensive planting guide that I almost forgot to mention today. And if you've got any questions, like I said, send me an email if I didn't answer your questions, or maybe you're watching the replay and you've still got some questions that you need answers. I'm always happy to help. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more. Thanks, everybody, and happy planting.